So I believe it was March 17th when I heard about the coming Los Angeles shelter-in-place order. And I, like I imagine a lot of other people in our industry did, panicked thinking, when am I going to get back to work? Because it seemed like the entire industry would be shut down for a long time, like everything else. And so I'm a director and mostly have been directing celebrities over the past few years in both commercials and promos, and thought, well, if nothing else, networks and brands would at least want celebrity spokespeople to get on camera and still say, promote their shows or promote a product. And so I was looking at the things that were being done, and people were mostly having talent either use Zoom or their cell phones to shoot themselves. And honestly, the content looked pretty terrible. The other alternative was some people were having things called drop kits sent to talent, and a lot of times talent would actually have to assemble different components, put them together, and they were responsible for shooting themselves, and that's the last thing that your talent wants to be doing. So I just thought there had to be a better way. And so actually, I think it was the 17th of March that I kind of had this seed of an idea for Crew in a Box. And the first call that I made was to Jeremy Fernsler, who was a friend of mine since college. Jeremy's an incredible VFX artist. He was a VFX supervisor on Westworld last year, was Emmy nominated for that. And we batted some ideas around. And my second call was then to Dallas Sterling, who's a really innovative cinematographer that I've worked with. And Dallas is also really mechanically inclined, so I figured, he could actually build this thing that whatever we were going to come up with. And so at first, I think Dallas thought I was a little crazy. He liked the idea, but he didn't think it was feasible. And then I just kind of, over the next week, I think, wore him down a little bit, pestering him. And finally, he was like, all right, let's try it. And so we started collaborating. Then Jeremy came back in to write the software to communicate with the camera. And I think within 3 months, Dallas had built this prototype in his garage, and we went right to market. To all of our surprise, it worked really well, and we were pretty much immediately hired by Viacom CBS to shoot our first project. So Crew in a Box was born as a direct response to the restrictions that were put in place because of COVID. And initially, I had seen it as a great tool that could be used for interviews, for documentaries or news, or great for beautiful direct address for promos and commercials, because that's the world that I come from. But I quickly realized there are so many other things it could be used for, both during the pandemic and after. We had a demo for a network very early on, and afterwards, one of the executives spoke about how it would be amazing for reality TV show confessionals. The next executive came in and said, this is perfect for press junkets. Talent hate going to them anyway. They can now do it at home. We can just queue up reporters in the waiting room, and they can do press junkets that way. And I was like, that's a great point too. The next executive came on and said, we can use this whenever we need to film in a remote location that doesn't have great crews. We can just send Crew in a Box. So I realized very quickly that it was really versatile for a lot of different purposes. And even now, I see the late night TV shows, and while the guests, or I should say the hosts, are in studio and that looks great, they still have guests joining from home, zooming in, and the quality is still really terrible. So I think it would be great if they got a couple Crew in a Boxes and sent them to their guests to make sure that the entire show looked great. But it's interesting that I think a lot of these things will be useful during the pandemic, but also after, because, for instance, we now have clients who have the option of using local crews, but instead they've decided to send Crew in a Box just because it's more cost effective. We even had a stage shoot where on a couple of different stages they were utilizing local crews, but on the third stage, this was a multi-platform shoot, they decided to use Crew in a Box instead. So I think it's really going to be useful, obviously now, but also going forward in the future. Crew in a Box contains top-of-the-line components, but what makes it really special is the way that those components are integrated into a fully remote-controlled plug-and-play system. The main components include a 6K cinema camera, a 35mm prime lens, 2 microphones, one of which is an industry-standard lavalier, and the other is a hypercardioid condenser, which is essentially like a short shotgun. We then have a 3-foot wide, 3-panel LED light that folds out of the box and then folds out. It's really great because each panel is individually controlled, so you can shape the light. You can do full dimming and color temperature changes on each panel. Then we have a beam splitter glass, which the camera is shooting through, and beam splitter glass is what's used in a teleprompter. So you can use that as a teleprompter, which is great for direct address right into camera. You can also use that as an interrotron, which is how you can put the image of a director or another talent on that glass, and the talent you're shooting can speak directly with them, looking into their eyes while they're looking into the camera, which is great. You can also use that for roundtable discussions if you have multiple crew in a box units. And the other thing you can be used for is vanity. So if talent wants to see what they look like in camera, or let's say, it's a situation where they won't let anyone in their location, where you can have remote makeup people that are talking them through makeup tutorials. So it's really versatile. There's also a second monitor on the side which can be pulled out and can be used for all those same purposes, but with an off-axis eye line. You can put that wherever you want. There are other great components in the system, like a switcher, so if you want to connect multiple cameras and do DVE effects, as well as a cellular bonded modem, which is great because you don't have to rely on talent's home Wi-Fi network in case there's any security concerns and they don't want to give you their password. And it also allows us, as soon as the box is plugged in, we immediately get control of the unit. So that's really great. We're making Crew in a Box available to anyone who'd like to use it. First thing is you could buy it, and if so, we fully support it and offer extensive training. But you can also rent Crew in a Box as part of a production services package through Wavemaker Creative, my production company, in which case we include an operator of Crew in a Box who's also a director of photography and other production support. Most of our clients have been broadcast networks. I think we've worked with 12 networks so far, but we've also worked with commercial production companies, advertising agencies, and other entities. A lot of calls that we've been getting are from people who have had bad experiences with other remote production solutions, and it's just so gratifying to see how happy they are with Crew in a Box and how they're struck with how easy and seamless it all is. So many of the projects that Crew in a Box has shot have been logistically challenging. I can think of one for the Disney family of networks in which we shot 14 talent in 14 different locations with 3 boxes over 3 days in multiple cities. That was pretty crazy, but went off without a hitch, actually, and was really special because it was for an anti-bullying campaign that they were doing, which is a cause that I really get behind. As a director, I sometimes direct projects with Crew in a Box, and I think one of the most fun was for the NFL kickoff this year for NBC Sports. I got to direct Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Eric Stonestreet in some fun spots. And it was also challenging because for a couple of them, we only had them for 15 minutes. So it was definitely interesting, but a lot of fun. I think a lot of people discount pre-production when it comes to virtual production, but there's a lot of things that you could be doing to ensure a smoother shoot. The first of which is figuring out the address you're shooting at and doing connection speed tests to ensure that the internet speeds are sufficient. The next thing is having a virtual tech scout, which is super important. You don't want to have to wait till the day of the shoot to find out that there's something that you didn't plan for in the location. So we like to, ahead of time, have talent zoom in to a conference and they kind of give us a tour of the home and we can figure out where do we want to shoot. Are we going to be keying the light from the box? Are we going to be using an external source like a window? And the other thing is kind of figuring out your back channel communications. I'm sure everybody can be talking to each other, and sometimes there are a lot of people on these conferences between client and agency and the crew. So you want to be talking about how you want to have those conversations during the shoot. Do you want to have a side chat? Is there going to be a phone call between the clients and then they're going to relay that all their notes through one person? These are all things that you should be figuring out ahead of time. We send a fully disinfected Crew in a Box to your talent, usually at their home. You can choose to ship it directly to them or to a local camera tech who will set it up on a cart outside, making it even easier. Talent simply brings it inside and plugs it in, and Crew in a Box automatically connects over the internet using cellular bonded technology to our mission control, where we gain control of every component in the system and are able to remotely control the camera, the lens, the microphones, the lights, and the teleprompter/Interrotron. At that point, crew, agency, and clients all join a video conference where they communicate with each other and talent, and they view a beautiful high-definition image straight out of the camera with no latency. High-resolution video is recorded inside the box, or you can choose to live stream. We're always innovating on the product. So for instance, our newest models that we're also selling, they're tripod mountable. We also have included levelers at the corners in case you're not using a tripod, so you can adjust for tilt and horizon. And we're also experimenting with new camera options and the workflows involved in that. So we hope to have some exciting news soon regarding that. To learn more about Crew in a Box, just visit crewinabox.com. There's a lot of informational videos that explain how the system works, as well as sample projects that Crew in a Box has shot. And feel free to reach out to me or anyone else on the team. We'd love to answer any questions that you might have.